when I started making this, I had no idea it was going to be this big. Hi, welcome to My Mini Addiction. I'm Jacera. I make and paint miniatures and terrain for tabletop gaming, and today I'm talking about my bell tower. So this is all 3D printed, and the STL is from the Frost City 2, a Kickstarter by STL Miniatures, and this was their final stretch goal for this Kickstarter. So they've had, this is from their second one, and these are miniatures that they designed to be played with Frostgrave, or they can be used for any game, but that was some of the intention on their miniatures. And so they have minis and some scatter, and then they had this amazing bell tower, and it came with actually two STLs for two versions. So we have the complete version, and there was also a ruined version. So where there's like a piece missing from the roof, and then chunk out of the side and stuff. And the intention was for it to be made all out of resin. It came all pre-supported, so you can easily 3D print it out of resin. But I have been out of resin for months, and at the time I started this like 2 months ago, I had PLA. So that is what this whole thing has been made out of. And the 3D printing of it has just been so many hiccups along the way. So, well, first of all, I was trying to, I had a limited amount of PLA, and I had a bunch of miscellaneous spools that had just like a little bit left that I was trying to use up. Now, some of it was kind of old, so that made, it printed decent, but it was not, ideal, but it worked. So the original, it was all sorts of various colors that I used while printing this, and I started around the new year, and I had, I was doing it on my Ender 3 S1 Pro, and then also I was using, my daughter let me use hers as well. She has the same printer, and I had them both running to begin with, because it was like, okay, if I could just get through two printers running the pieces, shouldn't be any problem. Then my printer went down, and it has yet to be fixed. I need to get some new parts for it, but my daughter said I could finish printing everything on hers. In the meantime, we had bad storm, we had power outages, and so there was times that prints got messed up because the power kept surging and things like that. And then finally, I just shut down the printer for several days until I had consistent power back. So I got everything that I thought I needed printed, and I was starting to paint it and assemble. Then I realized I had missed this section, and so I had to go back and print that, because as I had tried assembling it, I'm like, something just doesn't look right. And sure enough, I had missed a whole layer, and I don't know how I did that, but in the process of, slicing all the stuff, I just missed that one part. I did have to modify things a little, and so this section right here where it has this railing had this really cool. It looked like kind of a wrought iron that had like little swirling designs. And because I was using, when I got to this part, I was using really old PLA. It had problems forming all those parts correctly. And when it finally came out, and I was just like, oh, it just doesn't look good. So I ended up cutting everything out, and there's a few little parts that I missed, but overall, I think it works because of it looks old, just because there's places where the plaster's missing, the bricks are exposed. And so I was like, well, if I paint the railing, to look more like rusted metal, then it'll be okay that it's a little beat up and little parts are missing. It kind of goes with, giving it some age. Another thing I had a little bit of trouble with was the bell on the inside. It had this very delicate little chain that, printed fine, but in the process of removing supports, I broke the chain in like 4 different places. And I was able to reattach it back together, but that was a little bit of a pain. But it's okay. Everything, worked out fine. I did notice as I'm gluing things together, a couple pieces that were also some of the really old PLA had, it seemed like it had warped just a little bit in the printing process. So there's a couple places where, seams don't line up just perfect, but that's okay. Overall, you look at it and you don't really notice. I see, because I was putting it all together, and I notice where I have, little places that, didn't turn out perfect, but that's okay. So, how I painted it was actually really basic, and it's not a lot of different colors, but I used just really cheap, the apple barrel craft paint, because when I'm doing large terrain pieces, it's just easier to base with, a super cheap paint where you're getting, a bottle for like 50 cents. And so I used a lot of those same colors all throughout, and then kind of mix different versions of them together to kind of get similar colors but not the same. And then to kind of give it a little bit of aging on, I used, the metallics are actually Reaper paints, because I really like their metallics. And I used this ancient bronze up along the top, and then I tried to give it kind of a patina look. So with a little bit of, the turquoise that it looks like when, statues get old and they start turning that kind of greenish color. So that's what I did to kind of give it a more aged feel on that. And then on this railing, I actually have a paint that's called Rusty Anchor. So it's a nice rust color that I kind of highlighted on there to give it more like, yep, this is old, it's rusty, not well taken care of. So along the base, if you've seen, any of my terrain stuff, I like to add little touches of actual moss on there to make it kind of look like, on the rock, that there's actually some moss growing. I contemplated, putting some on different places on the actual bell tower, but I opted not to, and I'm like, I will just do it on the base. I'm going to actually set up in a different area, and I'm going to do some pictures to kind of show you more details, and then maybe some video showing closer of everything and all the layers and how everything, comes apart. So you can see that it opens up, it's playable on the inside, and yeah, it's pretty neat. And then I made sure, because, it's going to be playable inside, is I wanted to protect the paint. So as you're taking, pieces apart and putting them together, I didn't want paint to get scratched off, so I used the Liquitex matte varnish, and actually mixed in my acrylic ink that I use for my washes with the matte varnish to go over everything. So it kind of added some, I tried to make it more, dingy colors, and but then having that varnish mixed in as I'm doing the wash. It was a happy accident. I mixed some up a couple months ago when I just grabbed the wrong bottle and didn't realize, and then I was like, oh, that works for what I need. So on something like this, where I just don't want it to get scuffed, I don't have to go back and do like my a clear coat or varnish or something on top, because it was already mixed in with the wash that I was putting on. So I don't know if it saves a step, but it's something that I did, and I kind of like how it turned out. So I've been doing that on some of my more recent projects. But anyway, because I wanted to shot with the whole thing in it at once, and that's why I've got it sitting here, and that's why I've been talking. But let me move things around and get set up so I can show closer things and give you a better look at this amazing bell tower. So even though it took me like 2 months roughly to get this whole thing done, it was so worth it. It turned out so cool. And yeah, so this was one of my bigger 3D printed projects. I've got bigger stuff in mind, but this is, one of the big ones, so to date. So anyway, let's take a closer look at the bell tower.